Congratulations, class of 2023.
That was my commencement speech. About a year ago, I graduated valedictorian at McGill University, and there's a lot that I learned while I was there. But there's one lesson that I really want to focus on in this video, and it's this. Regardless of talent, a huge chunk of your achievement, of your success as a student comes down to organization. And so whether you want to be valedictorian or if you just want to get an A, maybe you just want to be less overwhelmed, I'm going to show you the methods that I use that let me preside multiple clubs, that let me do well in classes, that let me run a business on the side. I'm going to show you all of that, and it's not magic. You don't have to sacrifice your sleep. You don't have to sacrifice seeing friends or family. It's really just being smart and intentional about your time, about your organization, and how you manage everything. All right, first is your calendar. I'll go quickly on this one, but it's not as basic as you might think. First off, if you're not using a calendar, you absolutely really need to be using a calendar. And here's what I suggest on how to use it and how to manage your time. First is you absolutely need to have your recurring stuff on your calendar. So your class schedule, any clubs or associations you're a part of, if they meet every week, you want to put that in. If you have sports practice or anything you're really committed to that comes up at a predictable time, put it in there. That's level one, okay? If you want to take it to the next level, and this is where it starts getting interesting, I really recommend putting in personal stuff. So for example, for a semester, I was looking to get more gymming time. Like I wanted to go to the gym more regularly. And so what I did is I started putting in time blocks, like literally blocks of 2 hours, 4, 3, 2 times a week, whatever it is, to actually motivate myself, remind myself, and actually commit to going to the gym this often. It really helps with habits you're trying to develop. It also helps with your personal life. If you have friends that you really want to see, or if you want to commit to seeing your family or spending time with people you care about, putting them in the calendar is not insulting, it's not weird. And so I would put in, if I scheduled a lunch with someone, or if I had a party that I was going to, I would put it into my calendar. It's a matter of not forgetting, and it's a matter of freeing up space in your mind to live and do other things. When it's on the calendar, it's official, but it also means that your mind can think about other things than just remembering where to be all the time or not forgetting something. Of course, I'm a huge fan of spontaneity. I'm big on like living life and not scheduling everything. Like don't put in your bathroom breaks, right? Like don't have every minute of every day scheduled. You don't need to put in your breakfast or whatever it is, but try to put in as much as you can, because the more you put into a calendar, the more useful it becomes. You get out of it what you put in. And if you really want to take this to the next level, I'll suggest one last thing. There are some tools that go on top of your calendar that can help you optimize even more. And these are essentially AI-based tools. I used Reclaim. I'll put the link in the description to Reclaim. And there's another one called Motion that I know of. So the way it works is, for example, for the gym, I told Reclaim, the tool that I was using, that I wanted to go to the gym 3 times a week for 2 hours, and that I could go between this time and this time because that's the time that my gym would open. And what Reclaim does is it looks at your Google Calendar every week and it puts in a slot or a time block for the gym wherever there's space. And what's really cool about the tools like Reclaim is that they use AI. So if I change my schedule, or if I add something new like a lunch with friends on a Monday, then it knows that it can't put the gym at the same time I went last week, and it moves it to whenever is most convenient. That's really the approach I have, is like have a calendar, put in the basic recurring stuff. If you want to take it to the next level, put in your personal stuff. And if you want to take it even further, maybe use an AI tool to optimize even more. Okay, next you need a dashboard. I used Notion, and that's what I would recommend. It's simple, it's minimal, whatever it is, you need one tool, one place to organize your content. You can't have stuff all over the place. You can't use your Notes app one day and use a notebook the other day. I really recommend you stick to one central thing. If all you do is you put everything in one place, that's already a huge step forward, and you would be surprised how many people do not do this. And here's my suggestion on how to structure it and how to approach it. So if you use Notion, OneNote, even if it's a notebook, here's what I recommend, regardless of what tool you have. Have one section or one category for classes, and for each class, have one page or section for notes for each class. So what I would do on Notion is I would have a page for classes. It was literally called like fall semester or winter semester. And within each, I had different pages for each of the 5 classes I was taking within that semester. So if it was like marketing, I would have a marketing page and then one for finance and whatever. And within each, I would have lecture notes. I would have anything that's content for that class that I needed to write down, I would put in there. The next part of it is I would have something called like a deadline tracker or an assignment tracker. And for this one, what I would do is when I would get my syllabus, I would right away take note of the assignments and the exams and their dates and put them into a database. And that way I would see throughout my week what I had to do, what was coming up, what deadlines were approaching, without making my calendar too cluttered. I don't like having assignments on calendars. Some people do that. It's up to you to figure out which works best for you. But what I recommend is a calendar is for stuff you need to go to, for stuff you need to show up for, and it's for events. For deadlines and things to do, I used my dashboard app, which was Notion. So I would track my deadlines and assignments. And the third thing I would have, so you have the notes, you have the tracker. The third thing I would have is one for clubs and activities. This is if you want to like take it to the next level. I had a section on my Notion just for clubs. And for each club, I would have a page, and each page would have different content. So for the Entrepreneurship Society that I was the president of, for example, we would take notes on different events. We would plan for sponsorships and things like that. So I recommend, if you want to take it to the next level, involve your extracurriculars in this same dashboard app you use for your classes, because that way it's like one central place for everything and it simplifies everything. All right, next is email. This is especially important if you're working at the same time as you're a student, or if you have different email addresses. We all like usually at least have like a personal email and a school email. I had a work email too. I had a business email. I had like a ton of accounts. Regardless of what your situation is, I really recommend using one email app for everything. Like instead of having Gmail, Outlook, iCloud email, whatever it is, all those email apps, I recommend using just one. And you can do this. Like you don't need to have all your accounts be Gmail accounts to use them on Gmail. That's not how it works, right? You can have different accounts in one app. So I used Outlook, and I would sign into all my email accounts in Outlook. So I had a work category with my email for work and business. I had a school category with like a little graduation hat that had my McGill email, so I would get all my McGill stuff in there. And then I had a third one, which was my personal, which was like a little man icon head thing. And that way I got my personal emails in there. So that really separated it for me. And it was cool to like go to one place to check my email, but still have it be separate and structured based on what I was gonna do. Also for email, I recommend having different signatures depending on what the reason for the email is. If you have a student email, for example, your signature could be your name, the program you're in, your graduation year maybe, and your contact information. If it's the work email, obviously maybe it's the company or what you do, your position, and your contact information. If it's your personal email, maybe you have a website or your LinkedIn there. So really having different signatures for different types of emails helped me a lot because it made me look more professional, and I didn't have to like adjust the signature every time. Okay, this one's super important. Files, folders, and anything that's not notes, okay? So in university, obviously you have notes, and we talked about putting these in like a Notion or a notebook or whatever. But beyond that, you're gonna create content that's not text. Sometimes you're gonna create a video to submit in a class. Maybe it's a PowerPoint presentation. Sometimes it's like text, but it's a Word document or it's a report that you're submitting, and these need to go somewhere. So what I recommend, first off, is to use a structured system. So this is what I had, one folder per semester, and then within that, one folder per class that you can put content in for each class. And then you can also have a folder for each club. I also recommend you keep everything in there. You never know when you're gonna have to refer to something in the future. Maybe in your last year, you're applying for a program that wants to see a writing sample on plants. And maybe it just so happens that in your first year, you wrote an essay, a 40-page essay on plants and the economy. And so now you easily know where to go find this, because you can just go in your fall of your first year, you go in that class and you got that. So don't delete stuff, structure it by class, by club, by association, however you want. And then lastly, use a cloud service to sync your files. In university, I sometimes had access to my laptop, but sometimes I needed something on my phone very quickly. Sometimes it was my tablet. And so it's really cool to have something like iCloud or Google Drive where I can access all my files all the time, where everything's always backed up. And so I highly recommend you also have this system. If you want to take things to the next level, and this is my last tip on folders, I recommend doing the same thing for job applications, for internship applications, because this is going to happen very quickly. Like, you're going to get into university, you're focusing on classes and clubs, but very quickly it's going to turn professional, and you're going to start applying with a CV and a resume and cover letters. So what I had also, in addition to the classes and clubs folders, I had a folder for all my applications, and so it was essentially called like applications. And in there, I had my CV, my recommendation letters were all in there, every letter I've ever gotten. And then I had a folder for each application I ever did. So every job I applied to, every internship I applied to, I had a folder with like the CV that I personalized and the cover letter that I personalized. And that was cool because anytime I applied something new, I could go back and see what I did for a similar application, for example, and reuse that stuff. All right, that's the magic, that's the secret. I have a final tip. Really try things out and see what works for you. Systems, tools, apps, methods only work if you use them. So if you set up a Notion and you only use it for a week during syllabus time and then you never use it again, there was no point, right? So I highly recommend take what I told you, think about it, think about how you prefer to do things. If you're more of a handwriting person, Maybe take a notebook instead of a Notion. Maybe use an agenda on paper instead of using a Google Calendar. Like, adapt these tips to you, and I guarantee you're gonna see a huge difference. Organization was key to most, if not all, of my success in university. Also, don't forget to leave room for spontaneity, for living life, for unstructuredness, for creativity. You can be organized, you can be structured, and still leave room for that stuff. Don't overdo it, and don't put a lot of pressure on yourself to have everything written down, everything color-coded. Like, people who know me know I sometimes barely took notes in classes. I sometimes heard of stuff like a day before it happened, or did things like very last minute. Like, this happens to all of us. But organizing is a good first step, and sticking to a system that you've tried, that you've tested, that you've improved over time is the best way to do it, while leaving room for life and what can happen. If you have any questions, if you have any suggestions for people, also please leave them in the comments. I love it when there's crowdsourcing of information. I hope this was helpful. Send it to a friend that you think needs to get their stuff together. Send it to any student that you know, and best of luck in the school year.